Hi, everyone. We all know all too well that dealing with conditions like ME/CFS is already a nightmare. But for me, the real gut punch came, at least initially, from the dismissal that I faced from the people that I trusted the most. I will never forget when my doctor wouldn't approve my medical leave, saying that because all my tests were normal, I was fine and I should go back to work. And that's when it hit me that subtly accusing me of making it up was much easier than addressing the fact that my condition didn't fit the medical model. Hi, everyone. I'm Raelan, and every week I speak with incredible people who've recovered from conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID. Together, here, we uncover recovery strategies, highlight shared themes, and most importantly, offer validation and hope to a community that often suffers as much from dismissal as from the illness itself. That's why today's conversation is so important. My guest, Harnet Bokrezion, connecting with us today from Kigali, Rwanda, is an entrepreneur, a single mom who went through long COVID, and then, after recovering from that, a vaccine injury that left her battling over 60 devastating symptoms. Now, almost fully recovered, she's here to share her journey, her insights, and her mission to stand up for those whose experiences challenge the medical narrative. And since the new year is all about fresh starts, there's no better time to prioritize your health and set the tone for the year ahead. So before we dive into this interview, I'd like to thank Viome for sponsoring this video and helping me consistently bring you quality content at no cost to you. Many people that I interview here on this channel face gut health issues, including bloating, weight gain, fatigue despite adequate sleep, stress, acne, lingering inflammation, mood swings, and difficulty concentrating or brain fog. So Viome is an at-home health test that will analyze your body to determine your nutrition and supplement recommendations. You'll discover which foods might be triggering swelling or imbalance throughout your gut and body. These results are often very surprising. For example, 49% of people who take Viome's test learn that broccoli is a food their body needs to avoid. So you'll get insights into the most beneficial supplements and gut biotics for your specific body. And Viome's results will give you a biological age that will tell you if your body is aging faster than it should be. It can be confusing listening to conflicting health advice or waiting months to see if a certain diet has worked for you. I did testing through Viome, and the insights I received around what foods my body responds well to and doesn't was really helpful. I apparently am a part of the 51% of people who are okay with broccoli, but some other common foods like beets and celery can be problematic for me, so now I know to avoid them. Viome's test is easy to take, and you'll get the results in 2 to 3 weeks through the app. So make 2025 the year you take control of your health. Head to tryviome.com/Raelan Agle and use my promo code Raelan Agle to get $110 off your test. It's time to uncover what your body truly needs to thrive. Start the year strong with Viome. The link and details are in the description below. Harnet, amazing to have you here. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, Raelan, for having me. You were one of my North Stars when I was very sick, saying I'm going to be on this interview telling my story, and here I am. So I'm so grateful.
Oh, I'm so grateful for you being here. I know it's a courageous thing to do. It's to put yourself out there and share your journey, but I know a lot of people are going to appreciate hearing about this. So take us back. Where did this all start for you?
Yeah, so the whole story started in March 2020, the set off of the pandemic. I was busy superwoman, running my business, single mom to 2 boys. I was up and down across continents holding conferences. And when the pandemic hit, actually, I made kind of the last plane to the US, New York City, which was a hub at the time. And when I came back from my conference, I was very tired. I hit the bed and I didn't get up for 3 months. So at that time, there was, I didn't know anything about long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome. I just said, maybe I'm just completely burned out. But I had a lot of other symptoms as well. So, a long story short, that was my long COVID journey without really realizing at the time I had long COVID. My hair started falling out. I had a lot of gut issues and especially no energy. So that took about a year and I gradually became better, meaning I really didn't apply any exercises or brain training or anything because I didn't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. So I just got better by doing some simple adjustments to my diet and just being positive. I still managed to move to East Africa from Germany at the time, later in 2020, but I was home most of the time, and that took about a year. So after a year, I gradually felt better, and my energy came back. The issues I had disappeared, and I'm like, great. I'm back. I can finally enjoy my life in Africa, which was a long dream of mine. And then 2-3 months later, I took the vaccine. I took it very reluctantly. After the whole country was kind of vaccinated, I took it around 5 months later because I could see how they were clumping in on our freedoms and I had to travel. And so I said, okay, everyone around me seems to be fine. Let me just do this. And that was the biggest mistake of my life in retrospect. So I had 2 of the COVID vaccines in late 2021. And that is when not only all my old symptoms came back, but that is really when my health gradually went down very, very severely. I had maybe at that time, so it wasn't something kind of immediate. It was gradually over weeks and months. I had severe burning in my entire body. I had huge muscle and bone aches. I lost my energy and also I was bleeding a lot. That, menstrual cycle that wouldn't stop. I was bleeding so much. I thought I should get checked out in hospital, but I was bleeding so much that I said, okay, how am I going to get to the hospital? And what I'm going to do there waiting. So those were like the first signs. And also I would get, when I hit something, I would get marks or blue stains and they wouldn't improve. So that went on for around 3 months or so. And I was convinced something is really seriously wrong with me. It was at the core of my being, on a cell level. And I thought I have probably bone cancer or blood cancer. So I was convinced it must be something like that because, when I hurt myself, it wouldn't heal for weeks. And then I ended up in hospital with bradycardia, meaning a very, very low heart rate. I ended up in the emergency here in Rwanda. So because I thought I'm really ill, I was convinced that because I'm a woman, I was at the top of my life, top of my business. I take very good care of my health. And I could just feel my body getting into chaos on a cellular level. And so I said, I'm going to take my kids and travel to Europe, and I'm going to have a test for cancer with specialists because I was convinced it was blood or bone cancer. Well, it never got to that point. I made it to Europe, but it never got to the point to see an oncologist. I basically collapsed during our trip. Went to emergency twice, the emergency hospital. And I was really holding on to life at that point. So no one needs to measure anything. You know it intuitively when you're holding on to your last life energy. And I had several of those moments. I went to ER twice. That was in London, Germany and London. And I knew I was holding on to my kind of last life energy. And the doctors just let me wait in the waiting room. I couldn't even speak to them. I was completely lethargic. I was in a wheelchair, just like hanging. I couldn't talk. I couldn't grasp. I don't know where they put me because I couldn't understand my surroundings. And there I stood. And it was in that moment that I realized no one is going to watch out for me. I'm in ER. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I belong into an ICU. And there they put me. I was standing there for around 4 hours. And what really saved my life in that moment, that was really a pivotal moment for me. What saved my life is that when the ER people picked me up from my friend's home, I stayed with a friend in London. I just said to her, electrolytes. That's the last thing I could say. I couldn't say anything more. And she was panicking. And I think in her panic, she put a lot of electrolyte, like, half of the bottle in there. And she put that into my lap when the emergency people, the ER people took me. And so when I was waiting and I felt like I'm dying, I'm literally holding on to my last life energy. I remembered the bottle and I said, that has helped you before. And so I literally took my last, because it was very difficult for me to open it and to lift the whole thing. So I don't know, don't ask me how I did it, but it was, I took some zips and it was very salty. I remember that. And gradually I kind of got my energy back, over an hour, 2 hours. After 2 hours, I was able to sit and see where I am. And I saw a doctor still after 4 hours, and I said, I think I have long COVID at the moment. At that time, I didn't know about vaccine injury. And he said basically, sorry, we know this is a thing. We have no idea what to do. There are special long COVID clinics. Maybe you apply there. So he sent me he wrote me a transfer letter. And it was after that visit to the ER that I realized I'm in this on my own. My friend had a bedroom, which was in complete isolation. And it was really, Raelan, and to everyone watching here, it was a woman's intuition. It was my intuition that if I want to survive this, I have to tackle this on my own. I did not have the life energy left to go to doctor appointments, to explain, to go through all the tests that they're doing, blood test and lung test and all the tests they are doing. When you're hanging on to dear life, you don't have energy to do that. And I really understood that. And so I said, just focus on myself, on my own healing. And that's where the journey of healing began.
Wow. And this was really earlier on. I mean, the first time you had long COVID, I don't imagine many people were even talking about it.
That's right.
Before the vaccine. So how confusing. I mean, this is a terrifying, confusing, scary journey, even when we're aware that these conditions exist. And as you said, even when you got the vaccine injury, even then, that wasn't anything that people still are barely talking about it. So how did you think when the doctors didn't know what to do that you were going to figure this out on yourself? Like, what was your plan?
Right. Well, by that time, I was really suffering from over 60 symptoms. I didn't know that at the time. I, wrote them all down in retrospect. I have all of them down here. Maybe if at one point you think it will be helpful for people. I think there's nothing I did not have. It's almost like that. And so I had followed a long time ago. I had followed Dr. Joe Dispenza. where you use meditation to self-heal, seeing yourself in a stage of being healthy. And that is really the only thing I had, because I was too sick to read. I was too sick to watch YouTube. I couldn't follow. My brain was heavily inflamed. It was moving here, crawling. It was heavily inflamed. I couldn't grasp anything people were saying. Even friends and family reaching out in the very beginning, because we still had to catch a flight back home to Rwanda from London. And I sent my children on their own. And I stayed in that bed for 4 months in London. And so I was just really in bed with myself, my own thoughts, in pain, obviously, suffering, holding on to life. And I used prayers, meditation, and just seeing myself in a healthy state. That's all I had at the time. And it was actually through my friend who was coincidentally doing a study on long COVID and vaccine injury. And she told me, I think that's what you have. And so it was only after 4 months, I was catching the flight back to Kigali. I was strong enough to fly, and strong enough to fly, I mean, still, I was wheelchaired to the plane. People had to literally carry me. 2 of the stewards had to carry me into my seats. They gave me business class because I was so sick. And that was the very first stage. The very first stage for me was just intuitively knowing that modern medicine could not help me and doctors would just make it worse for me. And just being in my own world, to trying to be positive and making that flight to my children. So once I arrived here in Kigali, I got a whole set of new symptoms, including myocardia. Is it called myocardia? Yes, the myocardia.
Is that like heart?
Yes, and later I found out that is a typical symptoms that a lot of people got. I got issues, really bad issues with my heart. And I think part of that, it was not just the long trip I did, but now I was back in my environment. So the isolation was really good for me, but now I was back in my environment, my kids, friends wanting to come in, work. And I really couldn't handle any of that. And I deteriorated again. And now I had a new set of symptoms, including the inflammation of the heart, severe sleep apnea. And whereas before I had felt I am in danger in regards to the extreme electrolyte deficiency, which can kill you, I didn't know that at the time. But so those electrolytes really saved my life. I now was facing a lot of heart issues, and I was several times close to death in regards to heart failure, heart attack, heart failure. There were moments where I'm thinking, okay, if someone comes through the door now, I'm dead. And you really, let me say this, facing death and staying calm in the face of death is a strength I did not know I have. But it was, again, my intuition. Because when you are in that moment, you can't go and pick up a phone. It's, and explain things and wait for the ambulance and have all that, the turmoil around you. So it was, again, my intuition. And that really went on for half a year, that on and off feeling I'm getting heart attack, or, when I fall asleep, my heart and my body, my system is calming down so much that I'm not going to wake up if I fall asleep now. And of course, that is another symptoms. A lot of people fell, they slept and they never woke up. And again, I so sick, in pain and everything. I knew that also intuitively. So there were entire nights I just stayed up, although I'm so tired, I'm so sick. But I stayed up because I could feel if I'm falling asleep now, everything is so, I'm gone. And so that went on for all of that for about a year. And then a shift happens, and I'm going to talk about it maybe, in the second part. A shift happened. Sadly, I also lost my mom, like you, who had chronic fatigue syndrome for over 25 years. We never knew it. I understand it now because sadly I had similar symptoms. She didn't make it. So I was so sick, and then I also dealt with losing my mother. But I was too sick for her to visit me, and I was too sick. She was too sick to visit me, and I was too sick to visit her, and I didn't make it to a funeral. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Harnet. I am so sorry to hear that. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. Hearing you explain this whole journey, I just have goosebumps and my heart is breaking for you. What any single day must have felt like for you. Like, I'm just thinking, how did you get through all of those incredibly hard days? What kept you going?
What really kept me going, Raelan, was to let go of everything. And to just trust and have faith, to trust in my own body that I could self-heal. I have 2 boys. I have a lot to live for. But luckily I had a garden. Later, when I could leave my bed, I would be most of the time in the grass. That was my hospital bed, grounding, having the sun on me. And it was just the faith, but because I was so then detached from the outside world, I said no one could come to my house, and I was so detached from the outside world that I kind of connected to the spirit world. When you're so close to death, suddenly things change, and I think that's what kept me going. And yeah.
So you said after a year there was a shift. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So it was actually that I had again what I believe was an onset of heart failure. And I was in the moment, I was just, oh my goodness, maybe you're not making, and I was even thinking to go outside, people would not find me. But I couldn't. And so I was just focusing on calming down. And the next day I felt a bit better, and I said, that can't be it. I need to find a way out of this. And at that point, I was already aware of your YouTube channel and I was applying a few of those things, but there were some missing links. And again, I couldn't watch you much because I was so sick. So I was really searching. So I listened a lot to your videos at that day. I said, I need to find a solution. And then another doctor, I don't know the name of him, sorry about that, but a long time ago, he kind of helped people with trauma from war to get rid of their symptoms. And I saw how he changed someone like in 20 minutes. And I said, okay, let me try this. So he was looking for how is trauma still trapped in the body. So the first thing I realized is that I lift my shoulders, when I'm stressed. And so that was an important thing. Okay, maybe I'm giving my body signs. But then it was really through one of your videos, Raelan, where you actually shared your own experience with the brain rewiring, and you suggested to use a marble that goes through a pile of sand or something, and you use a marble. And I started with that all on the same day. I started with that, and I said, okay, instead of using a marble, let me use myself. I'm the marble. Mm-hmm. And I saw myself on the top of a mountain with a big slide going down the mountain. And I said, okay, I'm going down the mountain with a lot, into my life, into my new life where I'm completely healed. And the interesting thing that happened when I did that, because I would do this like every 5 minutes. And the interesting thing that happened was each time I did it, I started to yawn. And I was like, wow, my body seems to be reacting positively towards that. So it was the first time that I felt, so when I'm yawning, it's not because I'm tired, it's because my nervous system is calming down. And it was for the first time in almost a year that I said, that gives me control. And I was so in amazement, because the whole time you feel like a victim. The illness, all the symptoms, they have a grip of you. And this was a starting point for a new chapter for me.
I love that. And the people who are the most successful with things, I find, are the ones who take little bits and pieces here and there and then adapt it. Be like, okay, that sort of makes sense, but doesn't quite fit for me. How do I make this fit for me? So I love that you did that. And for people who aren't aware of what Harnet is talking about, it's an analogy I use for brain retraining, like picturing your brain like a hill of sand, and those marbles are going down those well-made pathways in your brain. They're used to, when X happens, then Y. It's on autopilot. It just goes. So brain retraining is like trying to push that marble down a new path. And in the beginning, you have to really work at it and do a lot of the thinking and the visualization and catching your thoughts and your feelings and just trying to approach things in a new way. And in time, that becomes the new pathway. Just a simplified way of thinking about how those neural pathways are developed in the brain. But yeah, really incredible that you figured out your own way to make this work. So I imagine there was more from there. So what happened next?
Yeah. So maybe, if I would sum up my recovery, it was really in 4 stages. So the first stage, as I said, was really just me, and I call it me in the spirit world. I was in meditation or prayers in bed most of the time because I couldn't do much. But even when I came home then, I just realized I have to let go of everything, because that would just stimulate my nervous system again, and symptoms would get worse, or in my case, were actually life-threatening. So it was about letting go everything, letting go again and again and again. And I said, okay, here's the old Harnet and here's the new Harnet, the old one and the new one. And even with my kids, old mom and new mom. And so it was within the day, my thoughts, old stories, people letting me down even. That's the story you can tell yourself when you're so sick. Friends that you would have maybe expected to call or support you somehow, nowhere to be seen. But you have to let go of all of it. Absolutely everything, from small to large. So that was the first phase, the letting go of everything, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That was my motto. It doesn't matter. The second stage was then what I've just introduced, where I suddenly realized I can be in control. And so what I did is, Raelan, I really started to micro observe my body. And so what I found, I wrote it down for everyone. What I found was, oh, it's the other way around, isn't it? Okay, I will read it out for you. So when I had dry eyes, for example, my eyes would dry up, or my hands would dry up, or I had heat waves, my body temperature would change, or I felt suddenly restless, or something started to ache again that wasn't aching, or I felt suddenly bloated out of nowhere, although I'm fasting. All of that were small signs for me that my nervous system didn't like something. And it was actually going, as I said, going up. And now I needed to just apply what I have learned to get it back down immediately before it can create damage or kind of major relapses. And so what I did is several things. So an important one for me was first closing my eyes and thinking of, me going down that slide. But the other one was also I started to use massaging and acupuncture. So for example, massaging my ears, or massaging, a big one was massaging my hands, especially here, or pressing my hand here, or here. This one, by the way, was a big one. I got my blood pressure down with this one. When you press here with a thumb and it hurts, that's not a good sign. When it hurts, you have inflammation in your body, your nervous system is alert. In a healthy body, it wouldn't hurt. So I would do these exercises here, or shaking. I would do a lot of shaking like this, or even just shaking like that. And all of that would create those little responses from my body of relief. So yawning, for me, it was mainly yawning and releasing air. So, I burping. And it could also be sighing, or you're also passing gas. But for me, it was mainly the yawning and getting the air out. And I would do this from morning to evening and in between. And that was really the new phase of being in control of my body, and my body for the first time would listen to me. And that was really because now I felt I could master new situations, where before that I was feeling it's dangerous, it's I'm close to death. And that was real. I understand that people are saying, just get out there. But if you are that close to death, hanging on a thread, you need to go about these things differently. You cannot just be out there and face situations. But now I was in a situation where I could control myself, and so I went out there. Now the third really stage is also through your channel, Raelan. The third stage was because I felt like I hit a ceiling. So why am I getting still these relapses or dips? I was well, and now I'm down again. And I think a lot of your viewers, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, when you're just seeing a little bit of hope, you're getting better, and then suddenly you're not. And so two actually of your guests, one was, I think, Miguel from CSF Recovery. He talked about the adjustment period. And I've just made I know it's the other way around, but you can still read this one. It's going up, but you have these dips, and they're very important, your adjustment period. And when I understood that, instead of saying, oh, goodness, here we go again, when is it getting better? I said, oh, this is just an adjustment period. And so I would be much more patient with the adjustment period and kind of lean in. And then it would, I would get out of that again. And the very last one, the last missing piece for me, came from Dan from Pain Free You. You had him on your YouTube channel again as well, where he said, just live your life. And I was strong enough now to make that step. In the beginning, it was really too dangerous. And I know it sounds counterproductive, but I was very, very ill. So once I had made these improvements, that was my last missing link, to just live my life and to try to feel at ease and at peace with everything I do. And that was the last missing link, and I'm almost fully recovered.
Wow. That is so incredible. Such helpful information. I wish I would have known this stuff years ago going through it, because it is so frustrating. I remember thinking, I thought I was past this. I'm doing well. And then all of a sudden I'm back again. I'm like, what's going on? I didn't do anything different. Now I think about it and I talk about it like if you're in a good stock market, it's going up like this, and you can go crazy if you just keep looking at it every day, because you're like, I'm doing great. Oh, no, it's terrible. It's crashing. Oh, I'm doing great. Oh, it's not good again. But when you zoom out and look at the overall direction that it's going, and understand that feeling worse is a part of getting better and just be at peace with that is such a game changer. Yeah, it's such an important thing. Wow, what a journey. So now, having been through both long COVID and then a vaccine injury, do you see them as the same thing? Or were there differences in those experiences? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Raylan, I think for me, I see them different. I mean, of course, I'm not just, a medical scientist or expert, but I see them very different. And I see people, talking about vaccine injury and they said, oh, that's probably just long COVID. Or someone is talking about long COVID and say, oh, you're probably just vaccine injured. And I think where my case is very unique, I really had both. I had the long COVID at the very beginning of the pandemic. Before any vaccine rollout, I had 1 year of long COVID. And that is, let's call it like, the conventional kind of term we use is the post-Malay exertion, after having a virus. And was that the right term, Raelan?
Like the post-exertional malaise?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Yes.
Yeah. So that is having the post-exertional, what is it?
It's a mouthful. Malaise. Most people just say PEM or PEM because it's easier. But yeah, when you do activity, mental or physical activity, and then you feel unwell, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Post-virus.
Yes. Yes.
So the first one is just the malaise, the tiredness post-virus.
Right.
But for me, to be very honest, that was a walk in the park towards, in comparison to the vaccine injury. The vaccine injury is much more than that. Because not only with the vaccine are you getting injected the virus, but with that vaccine, you're also getting injected the aluminium. You're also getting injected the mRNA, which is the messenger RNA of bacteria that they used. And, they are hiding in some kind of wrap up so that our cells don't recognize them and let them into the cell. Where inside the cell, they are then turning into some kind of factory where they produce the spike protein, which is very toxic. And on top of it, you also have bacterial contamination in the vaccine. So you have like a ×4. So whereas the other is just the malaise after a virus, this one, in my view, is contamination, poisoning, and that's why you have so many complete collapse of your system, because it damages the mitochondria, it damages the cells, and the cells cannot recognize themselves anymore and you're starting attacking your own cells. You have a lot of autoimmune disease. So that's where I really think there is a clear difference.
I thank you for explaining that, because I don't know a lot about the vaccination, like those details of it. I've done research just on the statistics of vaccines in general, and we can see, generally speaking, in the world, they've saved millions and millions of lives. But we also have to acknowledge that there are people that are having adverse, reactions to them and effects from them and get very, very sick. I also just want to point out that it seems to be individual too, because I've interviewed people with long COVID who thought they were dying, who were just in a horrible, horrible place. So I think that one can also, depending on the person and their situation, get them into a very, severe state as well. But an important distinction, and I appreciate you, pointing that out.
Really, very often, people had the vaccines, but they don't necessarily attribute what, the symptoms they have to the vaccine. I have so many people, and I know the same is true for your audience, who have family members who have died or fell serious ill with kidney problems, heart issues, and it's more than tragic. It is actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that people feel that they can't even talk about it. I mean, you and I, before we even started recording, were like, are we allowed to say the vaccine word? You know, is YouTube going to shut us down? And we should be able to talk about these things. We shouldn't have to be 100% for or against or any, like, we should just be able to have an honest conversation about this is what happened to you.
Yeah.
And we know what's happened to other people and how horrible to be going through something so horrific and also feel like you don't have the ability to talk about it and everyone's scared to talk about it. Like, how do you find information? How do you, know that you're not alone when people don't feel that they have the ability to speak up? I'm curious about something else because I'm known, if you watch a bunch of my videos, is I don't speak so highly of supplements. I know that they help some people for some things, but generally I've taken thousands and thousands of dollars worth and they did not help me, but I am just one person. But some people I interview have told me they've been very helpful. So you mentioned the electrolytes. You know, were there any other supplements that were helpful for you? Did this play a big role or any kind of role in your recovery?
Yes, it's DAO. DAO. It stands for diamine oxidase. So that one
Okay.
is an antihistamine supplement, but because I was reacting to all the food with really bad symptoms, that one was also crucial to get me through some nights. But the electrolytes were a lifesaver, and I still take them daily. My children take them, my whole family take them. And not just any electrolytes, or in the US, I think it's called ORS, but the natural ones. Mine are sold from the Salt Lake of Utah, and I take them several times a day. And I had my blood measured, and everything is fine. The reason I had my blood measured is because I needed the medical document that I was very sick and have been diagnosed. So I will never, ever take the vaccine ever again in my life. That's why I went back to the doctors to have the paper.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I also take electrolytes. So even when I say, I'm like, oh, I don't take supplements. Oh, except for this. Oh, and except for that. So everyone out there, take everything I say with a little bit of grain of salt. I'm a little bit jaded from supplements after having taken so many and spent so much money. And I know that resonates too for people. But sometimes we can go too far the other direction and just, shut our minds to things that can help us. Just because it hasn't generally been helpful doesn't mean that there aren't some things that can be helpful for you. And even if not for you, could be for somebody else. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. This has been incredible. If you were to leave people with one final message or insight from your journey, or something that you would tell yourself if you could go back to the beginning of your own journey, what would that be?
Yes, first of all, I would tell everyone watching, you will make it, you can make it. I think it is so important that you trust in your ability to self-heal. It takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of time, but doctors won't help you. In fact, all those drugs, are toxic as well if they're not naturally derived. The stress, all of that. I would just really go into self-healing and recovery. For me, what has been absolutely helpful again were these small exercises that helped me calm down my nervous system. I did a lot of grounding and earthing. Very, very important. I forgot to mention that. That also helped me. And just having the faith and the patience, because it takes a lot of patience. And hopefully, those, as you've just said, is so individual, but you will find your rhythm or your chapters towards recovery, and you will find the missing links, and you can get back to life and heal everything and properly heal it, which is beautiful. I'm not just physically healed, but I'm also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healed. So you can see the
Absolutely
as well.
Yeah, people watching, people listening, if Harnet can come back from what she's come back from and be sitting here, then it is definitely possible for you too. That's one thing we're seeing in the interviews across the board, is that you're never too sick, too far gone, too old, been sick too long for recovery to be possible for you. It is possible, and there's reason to have hope for everybody. And yes, I agree. The vast majority of doctors are not trained to deal with this. There are a small handful who are and who are in the know, but the chance of you landing in their doctor's office is pretty slim. I'm going to link here a playlist to expert playlist, because I've had the fortunate ability to interview a lot of the doctors who are saying the things like you're saying, Harnet, like they get it and they're talking about these things. So even if you can't get in their office, maybe they can come to you in the form of a video. So I encourage you to check that out. But thank you so much, Harnet. That was such an incredible story, so inspiring. You've been through so much. I'm so excited to see you sitting here and smiling and doing so well and paying it forward and sharing this information with people. I know it's going to mean the world to a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Raelan, also for everything that you do. You were my spark, in terms of finding the right way. And I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And please continue what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks, of course, to everyone watching and listening. Looking forward to your comments. And I hope to see you in one of these next videos with one of the expert doctors from the playlist linked.